Am I the asshole for not inviting my sister to our first child's baby shower? The moment my older sister handed my pregnant wife a gift bag full of diapers, baby formula coupons, and a handwritten note that said, "Just in case Mateo disappears like he always does," the entire baby shower went silent. My mother tried to pretend it was a joke. My sister smirked like she had finally won something. And my wife, 6 months pregnant with our daughter, locked herself in the bathroom, crying while 30 people sat frozen in my backyard, pretending not to hear it. But the truth is, that moment didn't come out of nowhere. My sister had been preparing for it for years. Ever since we were kids, she had already decided who I was going to be for the rest of my life. And no matter how hard I worked to change, she never updated the picture she had of me in her head. My name is Mateo Rivera. I'm 35 years old, married, and about 8 months away from becoming the kind of father I used to wish I had growing up. I own a small HVAC company outside Phoenix, Arizona. Nothing glamorous. Mostly residential jobs, commercial maintenance contracts, emergency calls at 2 in the morning when someone's air conditioning dies in the middle of July. It's hard work, but it's honest work. The kind where your hands crack during winter and your shirt smells like insulation even after you wash it twice. I built that company from one used van and a toolbox I bought off Craigslist 12 years ago. Now I have 6 employees, 2 trucks, and more work than I can personally handle. None of that matters to my sister. To Carmen Rivera, I'm still the 17-year-old kid who got suspended twice, totaled my uncle's truck, and nearly failed high school because I spent more time smoking behind the gym than going to class. And to be fair, back then, she wasn't wrong. I was a disaster as a teenager. Angry all the time. Lazy. Defensive. I skipped school constantly. Fought with teachers. Got arrested once for shoplifting beer with friends because we thought it made us look older. My mother spent years terrified I was going to end up dead or in prison. Carmen was 10 years older than me, which meant she spent most of my childhood acting less like a sister and more like a second exhausted parent. By the time I was 10, she was already in college. By the time I was 13, she was married with her first son. She had her life together early. Straight A student. Scholarship kid. Responsible. Organized. The type of woman who color-coded calendars and showed up 30 minutes early to everything. And then there was me. The family embarrassment. The problem child. At family parties, relatives would hug Carmen first and then turn to me like they were checking whether I had stolen something on the way in. I earned that reputation, honestly. But what nobody seemed willing to accept was that eventually, I grew up. People love talking about second chances until somebody actually changes. Then suddenly they miss the old version of you because it made them feel superior. I met my wife, Emily, when I was 26. She was working as a trauma nurse at a hospital near Tempe, and I met her because one of my employees split his hand open during an install and needed stitches. I remember seeing her walk into the room with her hair tied back and this exhausted expression on her face like she'd already dealt with 10 idiots before noon. She barely looked at me at first. Then my employee, Rico, started flirting with her while bleeding onto the floor, and she deadpanned, "If you pass out, I'm charging you extra paperwork." I laughed so hard I snorted in front of everyone. That should have embarrassed me. Instead, it became the reason I kept thinking about her. Emily wasn't loud. She wasn't overly sweet either. She was calm in a way that made other people settle down around her. She listened when people spoke. Actually listened. The first few months we dated, I kept waiting for her to discover who I used to be and leave. Instead, she judged me entirely on who I was in front of her. That terrified me more than criticism ever did. Because when someone believes in you completely, you suddenly lose your excuses. My mother loved Emily immediately. Mostly because Emily was patient enough to sit through 3-hour family dinners without complaining. My uncles loved her because she drank tequila without making a face. My younger cousins loved her because she treated them like actual people instead of annoying children. Carmen hated her within 2 meetings. At first, it was subtle enough that I kept making excuses for it. Little comments disguised as jokes. "Oh wow, Mateo dating a blonde girl. Never thought you'd go for someone so suburban." Or, "You know, white girls leave the second things get difficult, right?" Emily would smile politely and change the subject. That's who she is. She avoids conflict unless someone gives her absolutely no choice. But Carmen kept escalating. One Thanksgiving, Emily brought homemade stuffing to dinner, and Carmen looked at it and said, "Ah, you tried making real food." Another time, she asked Emily if her parents were weird about their daughter marrying into a Mexican family, just casually, while eating enchiladas at my mother's table. The worst part wasn't even the comments themselves. It was how everyone reacted afterward. Nobody said anything. My mother would force these uncomfortable little laughs and immediately start talking about something else. My uncles stared at their plates. My cousins looked at their phones. And me? I'd sit there furious, already feeling the pressure building in my chest. But if I snapped, suddenly I'd become the problem again. That was the family dynamic. Carmen could stab someone quietly, and everyone would call it sarcasm. If I raised my voice defending myself, suddenly the old Mateo was back. So I learned to swallow it. For years, Emily used to tell me, "You don't have to keep proving you're not the same person anymore." But that's exactly what it felt like. Every family gathering became another test I was expected to pass. Stay calm. Don't react. Don't give Carmen ammunition. Don't upset Mom. It was exhausting. Still, I kept trying because part of me believed eventually Carmen would soften. Maybe once she saw consistency, stability, a real marriage, a career, a home. Maybe then she'd finally let go of the image she built of me 20 years ago. Instead, she doubled down, especially after her own marriage started falling apart. Her husband Daniel left when their boys were 13 and 15. Midlife crisis situation. Started dating a woman 9 years younger from his office and moved to Colorado 6 months later. Carmen never recovered from the humiliation of it. She became sharper after that, more bitter, like every conversation had hidden teeth inside it. And somehow Emily became one of her favorite targets. Not directly, never enough to fully expose herself. Just constant little cuts. When Emily and I bought our house, Carmen walked through it silently during the housewarming party before saying, "Interesting neighborhood choice." When I expanded my business and hired more employees, she asked my mother if I was doing taxes legally now. At our wedding rehearsal dinner, she drank too much wine and told one of Emily's bridesmaids, "Honestly, I'm just waiting for Mateo to panic and disappear before the ceremony." Emily overheard it. She never forgot. I almost uninvited Carmen from the wedding after that. Actually, scratch that. I did uninvite her. For exactly 48 hours. Then my mother called me sobbing, real crying, hyperventilating, saying things like, "Please don't do this to the family, and your sister already feels isolated, and I just want one happy day where everyone is together." That's how my mother always handled conflict. Not by addressing the person causing damage, by pressuring the person most likely to sacrifice their feelings to restore peace. And unfortunately, for most of my life, that person was me. So Carmen came to the wedding. There's a photo from that night where Emily and I are dancing during the reception while everyone surrounds the dance floor smiling. Right in the background, Carmen is sitting at a table staring at us with this expressionless face while everyone else is clapping. My friend Noah once asked if she was attending a funeral. That picture bothered Emily more than she admitted. But we moved on. Or at least we tried to. Then Emily got pregnant. And for about 2 weeks, everything felt perfect. I still remember the morning she told me. I had gotten home after an overnight emergency repair call at some apartment complex where the AC unit exploded at 1 in the morning. I walked into the kitchen, half dead, tired, and Emily slid a coffee mug across the counter toward me. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Then I saw the pregnancy test inside the mug. I just stood there. No dramatic movie reaction. No yelling. I literally sat down on the kitchen floor because my legs stopped working. Emily started crying first. Then I did too. I don't think I realized how badly I wanted to be a father until that exact moment. For the first time in my life, the future felt bigger than my past. We told my mother during Sunday dinner. She screamed so loudly my nephew dropped his phone. My uncles hugged me. My cousins started making jokes about me becoming soft. It was honestly one of the happiest nights I'd had with my family in years. Carmen said nothing. Not congratulations. Not excitement. Nothing. She just sat there drinking wine while everyone else talked about baby names. Finally, my mother looked at her and said, "Aren't you excited?" Carmen shrugged. Hopefully Mateo's actually ready for this. The entire table went quiet. Emily stared down at her plate. And there was again that same familiar feeling. Like no matter what milestone I reached, Carmen would always position herself above it, judging whether I deserved it. I looked at her and said, "I own a business, Carmen. I've been married 6 years. We own a home. What exactly are you waiting for?" She took another sip of wine before answering. "People don't really change, Mateo. They just get better at pretending for longer." Nobody defended me. Again, my mother immediately jumped in with, "Okay, let's not ruin dinner," which somehow translated into everyone pretending Carmen hadn't just insulted my entire existence. Emily barely spoke during the drive home. Finally, she said quietly, "Your sister genuinely hates me." I gripped the steering wheel harder. "No, she hates me." Emily shook her head. "She hates that you're happy." That sentence stayed in my head for weeks. Because deep down, I knew she was right. Carmen never acted angry when I failed. She acted angry when I succeeded. When I was struggling, she knew exactly who I was in the family hierarchy. The screw-up younger brother she could criticize safely. But once my life stabilized, things became complicated. Because if I wasn't a failure anymore, then maybe Carmen's identity as the responsible savior of the family didn't feel as special. And honestly, I think that terrified her. Over the next few months, things got worse. Emily started noticing Carmen never referred to the baby directly. She'd say things like "your situation" or "this whole thing" instead of "the baby" or "your daughter." At my nephew's baseball game, one of Carmen's friends asked Emily when she was due, and before Emily could answer, Carmen laughed and said, "Assuming Mateo survives parenthood." Everyone laughed awkwardly except Emily. That night, my wife cried in the shower because she thought I couldn't hear her through the bathroom door. That was the moment something changed in me. Not explosive anger, not rage, just exhaustion. I was tired of treating my sister's cruelty like an unavoidable weather pattern everyone had to adapt to. Emily was carrying our daughter. And instead of protecting her peace, I was still stuck managing Carmen's emotions like I'd been doing since I was 15 years old. A week later, Emily and I sat at the kitchen table working on the guest list for the baby shower. She had this giant notebook full of decorations and themes and little handwritten plans because she's the kind of person who organizes happiness carefully. She looked excited for maybe the first time in weeks. Then she reached Carmen's name and stopped writing. "You can invite her if you want," she said quietly. That sentence crushed me more than if she had demanded Carmen stay away. Because I could hear the resignation in her voice. Not anger, not even frustration anymore. Just acceptance that she would probably have to tolerate humiliation to keep my family comfortable. And suddenly I realized something ugly. I had spent years asking my wife to endure emotional damage so I wouldn't have to confront my sister directly. That realization made me sick. So I looked at Emily and said, "No, I don't want her there." Emily looked up slowly, like she genuinely didn't expect me to say it out loud. I continued before I could backtrack. "She doesn't support us. She doesn't respect you. She's never once acted happy about this baby. Why would she come?" Emily stared at me for a second. Then she asked the question I've been avoiding for years. "What happens when your mom finds out? What happens when your mom finds out?" That question sat between us at the kitchen table longer than it should have. Emily didn't ask it dramatically. She asked it like someone who already knew the answer, but wanted to see if I was finally willing to admit it out loud. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the guest list spread across the table while the dishwasher hummed in the background. For a second, I almost said the usual thing. Something weak. Something safe. She'll get over it. Except I didn't actually believe that. My mother never got over conflict. She absorbed it into her bloodstream and carried it forever like some emotional debt everyone around her had to keep paying interest on. Emily kept watching me quietly, waiting. Finally, I said, "She's going to make this about herself." Emily nodded immediately like she appreciated the honesty more than the answer itself. "And?" she asked. I rubbed my face with both hands. "And she's probably going to say I'm destroying the family." Emily looked down at the baby shower, notebook again before speaking. Mateo, your family already acts broken. You're just the only person pretending it isn't. That sentence followed me for days. I wish I could say I handled everything confidently after that conversation. I didn't. I spent almost 2 weeks avoiding my mother's calls because I knew the second she realized Carmen wasn't invited, the pressure campaign would start. And honestly, part of me still hated myself for even thinking this way. Carmen was still my sister. I kept replaying old memories, trying to convince myself maybe I was exaggerating things. Maybe I was being dramatic. Maybe I was overprotective because Emily was pregnant and emotions were running high. But every time I started doubting myself, another memory surfaced. Carmen laughing at Emily during Thanksgiving. Carmen calling my daughter this whole thing. Carmen sitting stone-faced at my wedding like she'd accidentally wandered into the wrong event. And something happened that completely killed whatever guilt I still had left. Emily posted our pregnancy announcement photos online. Nothing excessive, just a few pictures from a desert maternity shoot we did at sunset. Emily in this soft blue dress, holding her stomach while I stood behind her with my hand over hers. Simple. Happy. The caption literally just said, "Our little girl arriving this winter." Within an hour, the comments were full of hearts and congratulations. My employees commented. Emily's nursing friends commented. Even my old high school football coach commented, saying I was going to be a great dad. Carmen commented too. Wow, let's hope this one sticks. That was it. One sentence. One disgusting sentence buried underneath 100 supportive comments. Emily had suffered a miscarriage 2 years earlier. Very early pregnancy. Only around 8 weeks. We hadn't told many people back then because it happened so fast, but Carmen knew. My mother knew. Close family knew. Emily spent months blaming herself afterward, even though the doctors repeatedly told us there was nothing she could have done. And my sister used it as a punchline. I stared at the comment for maybe 15 straight seconds, trying to process whether she had actually written it intentionally. Then my phone started vibrating. My cousin Isabella texting me. What the hell is wrong with Carmen? Then my uncle David, delete that comment before Emily sees it. Too late. Emily had already seen it. She was sitting on the couch, holding her phone with this pale expression on her face like all the oxygen had quietly left the room. I immediately grabbed my keys and said, "I'm going over there." Emily stood up fast. "No, Emily, no, Mateo." Her voice cracked slightly. "If you go there angry, your whole family will somehow turn this into your fault again." I hated that she was right. I hated that she understood my family dynamics so well after only 6 years. Instead, I called Carmen. She answered on the 4th ring, sounding irritated already. What? No hello. No hesitation. Just immediate hostility. Delete the comment. Silence for half a second. Then she laughed. "Oh my God, are you serious right now?" Delete it. It was a joke. About my wife losing a baby. Another laugh. Shorter this time. Colder. "You're so dramatic now. Emily's really changed you." I could feel my pulse in my neck. "You crossed the line." "No, Mateo. You just finally stopped being fun." Delete it. Or what? That question. That smug little question. Like she genuinely believed there would never be consequences because there never had been before. Then she said the thing that finally snapped something in me completely. Honestly, I don't even know why Emily acts so sensitive all the time. Women miscarry every day. I hung up immediately because if I stayed on the phone another 10 seconds, I was going to say something unforgivable. 5 minutes later, my mother called. Of course she did. Because Carmen always ran to her first. I answered already furious. "Don't." My mother sighed heavily into the phone. "Mateo, no. Don't start. Your sister was joking." "Mom, she joked about Emily losing a baby. She didn't mean it like that." "Then how did she mean it?" Silence. Then the familiar pivot. "Your sister's been under a lot of stress lately." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was unbelievable. You know what? I'm done hearing that excuse. Carmen has been under stress for 15 years. You know how she is. Yeah, cruel. Mateo. No, I'm serious. I'm done pretending she doesn't know exactly what she's doing. My mother's voice changed slightly then. Softer. Careful. You have to stop holding grudges. That sentence nearly made me throw my phone across the room, because somehow my family had always reframed enduring disrespect as maturity. If I tolerated abuse quietly, I was growing. If I finally reacted, suddenly I was holding grudges. "Mom," I said slowly, "if anybody else spoke to Emily this way, would you expect me to keep them around?" She hesitated. "Family is different." "Why?" Another silence. "Because family is forever." I looked over at Emily, sitting quietly on the couch, pretending not to listen. Her hand rested on her stomach protectively, like she was shielding our daughter from stress through skin alone. And suddenly I realized something that changed everything for me. My mother kept talking about family like it was the people I came from. But sitting in front of me was my actual family. My wife. My daughter. The people depending on me now. 3 days later, Carmen still hadn't apologized. Not to me. Not to Emily. Nothing. She deleted the comment eventually, but only after several relatives called her out publicly. Even then, she never admitted she was wrong. Instead, she posted some vague Facebook status about people being too sensitive these days. My younger cousins started quietly distancing themselves from her after that. Even my nephew Tyler stopped defending her behavior, and Tyler worshipped his mother normally. The only person still fully in Carmen's corner was my mom, which made the baby shower situation inevitable. The invitation issue finally exploded one Sunday afternoon while I was replacing a compressor unit at a dentist's office. I was up on the roof, sweating through my shirt when my phone buzzed. "Mom." I ignored it. 2 minutes later, she called again. Then again. Finally, I climbed down the ladder and answered. "What?" "Your sister says she never got the baby shower invitation." Straight to it. No small talk. I closed my eyes immediately. "Because she's not invited." Silence. Just wind blowing through the phone for a second. Then my mother said quietly, "You're kidding." "No, Mateo. Mom, I'm not doing this. You cannot exclude your own sister from a family event. Watch me. This is because of the Facebook comment." I almost laughed again. "No, it's because of the last 15 years. You're overreacting." Emily cried for an hour because of her. Emily is emotional because she's pregnant. I actually pulled the phone away from my ear after she said that, because I genuinely couldn't believe it came out of her mouth. "Did you seriously just say that?" "I'm saying everyone's emotions are heightened." "No." Carmen humiliated my wife publicly. She made one bad joke. "Mom, if anybody treated Carmen this way, you'd lose your mind. Carmen is going through a difficult period. Emily is carrying my daughter." My mother sighed sharply like I was being unreasonable. "I just don't understand why you insist on dividing this family." There was again. Somehow, every consequence Carmen experienced became my fault for acknowledging it. I leaned against the work van trying to stay calm. You know what the difference is between me and Carmen? I actually changed. People don't change overnight. It's been almost 20 years. My mother said nothing. That silence hurt more than arguing honestly, because deep down I realized she still partially believed Carmen's version of me too. Maybe not fully, but enough. Enough that no accomplishment ever completely erased who I used to be in her eyes. That night, Emily found me sitting alone in the backyard after dinner. The patio lights were on, and the pool filter hummed softly behind us. She sat beside me slowly because pregnancy had started making everything uncomfortable physically. "Your mom called me today," she said carefully. I looked over immediately. "What did she say?" Emily gave this tired little smile without humor. "She wanted me to convince you to invite Carmen." "Of course she did." And Emily shrugged lightly. "I told her I supported whatever decision you made." "What did she say after that?" Emily hesitated. That hesitation alone made my stomach tighten. "She said she worries you're isolating me from the family." I stared at her. "What?" Emily looked uncomfortable even repeating it. "She said you've always had a tendency to push people away." There it was. Again, the old Mateo, always waiting backstage, ready to be blamed for everything. I felt this wave of anger hit me so hard I had to stand up and start pacing across the patio. Unbelievable. Emily stayed quiet for a second before saying softly, "I think your mom's scared." "Of what?" "Of accepting that Carmen might actually be the problem." That hit harder than I expected, because it was probably true. My mother built her entire identity around holding the family together. If she admitted Carmen was toxic, then she'd also have to admit she enabled it for years. Over the next 2 weeks, the pressure intensified. Relatives started texting me weirdly formal messages. My Aunt Teresa wrote, "Families should stay united during important moments." My cousin Marco called saying, "Dude, maybe just invite her to avoid drama." Avoid drama. I noticed nobody ever said Carmen should stop causing drama. The responsibility always landed on whoever had the highest tolerance for pain. Eventually, even my oldest nephew Tyler called me privately. "Uncle Mateo, Mom's acting crazy about this." I sat in my truck outside a supply warehouse gripping the steering wheel. "What do you mean?" Tyler lowered his voice. "She keeps saying Emily turned you against the family." I rubbed my forehead. "Your mom did that herself." Tyler sighed heavily. "I know. I tried telling her. And she said I'm betraying her too." That conversation broke my heart a little because Tyler sounded exhausted. He was 19 years old and already carrying emotional burdens that weren't his responsibility. Then came the final straw. My mother organized a family dinner, supposedly to clear the air before the baby shower. I didn't want to go. Emily definitely didn't want to go. But my mother begged us repeatedly, promising there would be no fighting. "I just want peace before the baby comes." Those exact words. So against my better judgment, we went. The second we walked in my mother's house, I knew I'd made a mistake. Carmen was already there drinking wine at the kitchen island, smiling like she'd won something. Emily's body visibly tense beside me. Carmen looked her up and down dramatically before saying, "Wow, you're getting huge." No hello, no warmth. Just immediate cruelty disguised as commentary. My mother immediately rushed over, pretending nothing was wrong. Dinner's almost ready. Everyone sat down awkwardly. My uncles avoided eye contact. My cousins stared at plates. The tension was so thick it felt physical. For about 15 minutes, everyone forced fake normal conversation until finally my mother cleared her throat and said, "I think Mateo and Carmen should talk privately." I almost laughed. Carmen leaned back in her chair smugly. "About what?" "About resolving this invitation issue," my mother said carefully. I looked directly at Carmen. "There is no issue. You're not invited." Silence. Then Carmen smiled. Not surprised. Not hurt. Just amused. "You really think you can erase me from the family?" "No," I said calmly. "I'm removing you from one event." "Because your wife can't handle jokes?" Emily flinched slightly beside me. That movement alone almost made me lose control. "No," I said slowly. "Because you enjoy hurting people." Carmen rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh my God, listen to yourself. You mocked Emily's miscarriage publicly." I made one comment. "You've spent years disrespecting her." Carmen suddenly laughed harder. "You know what your problem is now? You think having a business and a baby suddenly makes you some mature family man." I stared at her without responding. She leaned forward slightly. "You're still the same screw-up you always were, Mateo. You just wear nicer clothes now." My mother immediately jumped in. "Carmen, no." Carmen snapped, eyes still locked on me. "Everybody keeps pretending he changed completely. He didn't. He just found a woman dumb enough to build a life around him." Emily stood up immediately. Complete silence filled the dining room. My wife grabbed her purse with shaking hands. "Emily," I started. She whispered quietly, "I want to go home." Carmen smirked. Actually smirked. Like she was satisfied watching my pregnant wife leave humiliated. And that was the exact moment I realized something terrifying. My sister didn't want reconciliation. She wanted control. And the second she realized she was losing it, she started trying to burn everything down around her. I drove home that night, gripping the steering wheel so hard my fingers hurt. Emily sat beside me, staring out the passenger window silently while streetlights slid across her face every few seconds. She didn't cry. Honestly, that was worse. I almost wished she would scream at me. Get angry. Tell me my family was insane. Instead, she just looked tired, completely emotionally exhausted. Halfway home, she quietly said, "I don't want your daughter around people like that." "Not our daughter. Your daughter." Like she needed me to understand exactly where responsibility landed now. I swallowed hard and nodded. She won't be. Emily kept looking out the window. You can't keep hoping they'll suddenly become different people. I didn't answer because I knew she was right. When we got home, Emily went upstairs without saying much else. I stayed in the kitchen alone for almost an hour replaying the dinner over and over in my head. Carmen's face, that smirk, the way my mother kept trying to smooth things over instead of shutting her down immediately. The worst part was realizing none of it surprised me anymore. My sister humiliating my wife in front of everyone should have felt shocking. Instead, it felt inevitable, like we'd all been watching a storm move closer for years, pretending it might randomly change direction. Then my phone buzzed. Mom. I stared at it for a full 10 seconds before answering. What? How could you leave like that? I actually laughed under my breath. Are you serious? You embarrassed your sister in front of everyone. That sentence hit me so hard I had to sit down. Carmen called my pregnant wife dumb. Because you provoked her. Mom, you know how emotional she gets when she feels attacked. SHE feels attacked. My voice echoed through the kitchen louder than I intended. Upstairs, I heard movement from a bedroom. Emily was probably listening now. My mother lowered her voice like she was trying to calm down a child. I'm asking you to think rationally. No, you're asking me to tolerate abuse quietly because that's easier for everybody else. Nobody is abusing anybody. Mom, what exactly would Carmen have to do before you admitted she crossed a line? Silence. Then she sighed heavily. You're still her brother, and Emily is my wife. You're choosing a temporary situation over your blood family. Temporary. She called my marriage temporary without even realizing it. I stood up immediately, heart pounding. You know what? I'm done. Mateo, no. I mean it. I'm done pretending this is normal. You're overreacting, and you're enabling her. I hung up before she could respond. The next morning, my mother showed up at our house unannounced. I was in the garage organizing tools when I saw her car pull into the driveway. Immediately, my chest tightened because I knew this wasn't going to be a peaceful conversation. She walked toward me, carrying one of those grocery store pastry boxes she always brought when trying to soften bad conversations. Manipulation disguised as kindness. I hated that I recognized the pattern now. I brought breakfast, she said carefully. I didn't move. Emily's resting. I came to talk to you. Of course she did. We sat on the back patio while the Arizona heat already started building, even though it wasn't noon yet. My mother folded her hands together nervously before speaking. Your sister called me crying all night. I stared at her blankly. Okay. Mateo, Mom, I genuinely don't care anymore. That visibly shocked her. I don't think I'd ever spoken to her that directly before. She looked at me carefully like she was suddenly seeing a stranger. You used to care about family. I still do. That's why I'm protecting mine. She shook her head immediately. You're talking like Carmen is dangerous. Emotionally? She is. That's ridiculous. Emily cried herself to sleep because of her. Emily is sensitive right now. There was again. Every wound minimized. Every insult reframed. My mother leaned closer. Your sister feels replaced. I blinked slowly. What? Ever since you got married. She thinks you abandoned the family. I almost couldn't process what I was hearing. Mom, I'm 35 years old. I know, but Carmen sacrificed a lot helping raise you. That sentence stopped me cold. Suddenly, old memories started resurfacing. Carmen picking me up from school. Carmen yelling at me over homework. Carmen dragging me out of parties when I was drunk at 16. For a second, guilt hit me hard enough to make me look away. My mother saw it immediately and pressed harder. She spent years trying to help you. By humiliating me constantly? By worrying about you? No. She enjoys feeling superior to me. That's not true. Then why does she only attack me when things are going well? My mother didn't answer. Instead, she quietly said, she's afraid you don't need her anymore. That sentence changed something for me because suddenly Carmen's behavior made horrifying sense. All these years I thought she hated me because I failed. But maybe the real problem was that eventually I stopped needing to be saved. Before my mother left, she tried one more time. Please reconsider the baby shower invitation. I shook my head immediately. No, you're forcing me into an impossible position. No, Mom. Carmen is. She's still your sister. And Emily is still my wife. My mother looked exhausted suddenly. Older somehow. If you do this, things may never recover. I stared at her calmly. Maybe they already didn't. After that conversation, the family split quietly into camps. Not openly. Nobody was dramatic enough for that. But you could feel it happening underneath everything. My uncle David started texting me, privately checking on Emily. My cousin Isabella sent flowers to our house with a note that said, "Protect your peace." Meanwhile, Aunt Teresa stopped replying to my messages completely. My younger nephew Jake unfollowed me online after Carmen apparently convinced him I was tearing the family apart. Every day felt like tiny fractures spreading wider. Meanwhile, Emily started withdrawing emotionally from all of it. Not from me, from the situation. She stopped asking about my family entirely. If my mom called, Emily left the room. If Carmen's name came up, Emily changed the subject immediately. One night while we folded baby clothes together, she quietly said, "I don't think your sister sees me as human." I stopped folding instantly. What? Emily looked embarrassed after saying it out loud. She talks about me like I'm an obstacle, or some random woman who manipulated you. I sat beside her on the nursery floor, surrounded by tiny pink clothes and blankets. You know that's not true. I know, but she doesn't. Emily rubbed her stomach slowly. And honestly, I think your mom believes it a little too. That one hurt because deep down I feared she was right. My mother loved Emily in theory, but whenever conflict happened, her loyalty always drifted back toward protecting Carmen emotionally. Every single time. 2 weeks before the baby shower, things escalated again. I got a call from my cousin Marco asking if the rumors were true. What rumors? I asked, already irritated. That Emily banned your family from seeing the baby after she's born. I literally froze in the middle of Home Depot holding PVC pipe. What? Marco hesitated. Carmen's been telling people Emily wants to isolate you from everybody. Rage at me so fast I almost dropped my phone. That's complete bullshit. I figured. Who else heard this? A lot of people. Of course. Carmen was preparing the narrative already. If she couldn't control the situation directly, she'd control how the family interpreted it. Suddenly everything clicked. The victim act. The crying to my mother. The Mateo changed comments. She was slowly rewriting the story so that when things finally exploded, she'd look abandoned instead of cruel. That night, I confronted my mother again. Did you know Carmen's telling people Emily wants to keep the baby away from the family? Silence on the phone. Too much silence. Mom, she sighed softly. Your sister is hurt. Answer the question. She mentioned feeling excluded. Did you correct her? Another pause. I told her emotions are high right now. I almost lost my mind right there in the driveway outside my office. You let her spread lies about my wife. I didn't want more conflict. So instead you let Emily's reputation get destroyed quietly. My mother suddenly sounded defensive. You don't understand how difficult this is for me. That sentence snapped something in me permanently. No, Mom, you don't understand. My voice dropped lower then. Colder. Every single time Carmen hurts somebody, you ask everyone else to absorb it, so she doesn't have to feel uncomfortable. That's not fair. It's exactly fair. She's your sister, and Emily is carrying your granddaughter. My mother started crying softly then. Real crying. I just wanted my family together. I closed my eyes immediately because guilt still worked on me even after everything. That's the worst part about family conditioning. Even when you recognize manipulation, part of you still responds automatically. Mom, I failed somehow, she whispered. Both my children hate each other. No, Carmen hates me. I spent years trying. Then try harder. There it was. The real expectation underneath everything. No matter what Carmen did, I was supposed to compensate for it endlessly. The week before the baby shower, Emily's best friend Rachel came over to help set up decorations. Rachel was one of those people who radiated protective energy naturally. Loud, funny, aggressive in the way loyal people sometimes are. She hated Carmen almost immediately after hearing the full story. At one point, while hanging decorations in the backyard, she said, "Why hasn't anybody punched your sister in the throat yet?" Emily laughed harder than I'd heard her laugh in weeks. Honestly, that alone made me grateful Rachel existed. While we worked, Rachel suddenly asked, You really think Carmen's gonna stay away? I stopped taping streamers for a second. What do you mean? Rachel raised an eyebrow. Mateo, people like that don't quietly accept boundaries. They escalate. That sentence sat heavily in my chest afterward because deep down I knew she was probably right. 3 days before the shower, Carmen texted me directly for the first time in weeks. You're embarrassing yourself. That was the entire message. No greeting. No explanation. I stared at it before finally replying, leave my wife alone. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, she turned you into a stranger. I typed back, no. She helped me become an adult. Her response came almost instantly. You always needed someone to clean up your messes. That one got under my skin because part of me still feared it was true. Maybe not financially anymore. Maybe not professionally. But emotionally? How I just transfer dependence from my mother and sister onto Emily instead? Before I could overthink further, another message appeared. She'll leave eventually too. I blocked Carmen's number after that. No dramatic speech. No argument. Just blocked. And honestly, the silence afterward felt incredible. The morning of the baby shower finally arrived bright and brutally hot. Emily woke up nervous already. I could tell by how quiet she was getting ready. She kept checking details repeatedly, even though everything had already been prepared perfectly. Decorations filled the backyard. Pink and gold balloons. Little wooden signs. Tiny desserts Rachel helped arrange across tables. Emily's mother arrived early carrying flowers and immediately started fussing over Emily in this soft, comforting way that made me realize how different healthy family dynamics actually looked. No tension, no emotional landmines, just support. Guests started arriving around noon. Co-workers, friends, cousins, neighbors. My employee showed up carrying absurdly oversized stuffed animals because apparently grown men lose their minds buying baby gifts. For the first time in weeks, things actually felt normal. Happy even. Emily looked beautiful in this pale yellow dress that framed her stomach perfectly. People surrounded her constantly laughing and asking questions about the baby. Watching her smile again felt like finally breathing after weeks underwater. Then I noticed my mother arrive. Alone. At least I thought she was alone initially. She walked through the backyard gate, carrying gifts while avoiding eye contact with me slightly. Immediately, my stomach tightened because something felt wrong. My mother hugged Emily awkwardly before whispering, "You look beautiful." Emily smiled politely but carefully. The distance between them had become visible now. Real. About 20 minutes later, while I stood near the grill talking to my friend Noah, I heard the gate open again. The entire backyard energy shifted instantly. Carmen walked in wearing dark sunglasses and carrying a giant silver gift bag. Right behind her, my mother had invited her anyway. Conversations started dying one by one around the yard as people noticed. Emily froze near the dessert table. Rachel muttered, "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." I started moving toward Carmen immediately while my pulse slammed against my ribs. Carmen removed her sunglasses slowly, like she was arriving at a performance. "Relax," she said casually before I even reached her. "I'm here for the baby. You need to leave. Mom invited me." I looked toward my mother, standing near the patio, suddenly refusing to meet my eyes. Betrayal hit me, so hard I almost felt dizzy. Carmen smiled faintly. "See? At least somebody in this family still understands loyalty." Leave? Or what? Same smug tone again. Same confidence that nobody would truly stop her. People were openly staring now. My Uncle David looked furious already. Rachel stepped closer to Emily protectively. Carmen noticed all of it and somehow seemed energized by the attention. "You really going to make a scene at your own daughter's shower?" she asked loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. That was the trap. She wanted me angry publicly. Wanted proof I was unstable. Difficult. Still the old Mateo. I forced myself to lower my voice. "You insulted my wife for months. You're not welcome here." Carmen rolled her eyes dramatically. "God, Emily really made you soft." Emily flinched visibly hearing her name. That movement alone nearly destroyed my self-control. Then Carmen held up the silver gift bag. "At least let me give the baby my present." Something about her smile suddenly made my stomach drop. And in that exact moment, I realized she hadn't come to fix anything. She came to humiliate us. Carmen stepped forward before I could stop her and shoved the silver gift bag directly into Emily's hands. "Go ahead," she said brightly. "Open it." The entire backyard had gone, so quiet I could hear the pool filter humming behind us. Emily looked trapped. That's honestly the only word for it. Trapped between trying to avoid a public scene and realizing everybody was staring at her waiting to see what would happen next. "You don't have to open it," I said immediately. Carmen laughed softly. "Why not? It's for the baby." Rachel muttered. This psycho planned something, under her breath beside Emily. Carmen heard it and smirked. "Oh, relax. Not everything is an attack." That line alone made several people visibly uncomfortable because everybody already knew that was exactly what this was. Emily slowly reached into the bag anyway. I wish she hadn't. The first thing she pulled out was a package of diapers, then formula coupons, then a parenting book titled Raising Children Without Dysfunction. People started exchanging confused looks. Then Emily unfolded the handwritten card. I watched her face change immediately, like someone had quietly slapped her. Her hands started shaking. "Emily," I said softly. She didn't answer. Rachel stepped closer. "What does it say?" Emily handed the card to me, silently, because I don't think she trusted herself to speak anymore. The note said, "Just in case Mateo disappears when things get hard again, every child deserves at least one reliable parent." I genuinely don't remember the first few seconds after reading it. My vision narrowed instantly. My ears started ringing. Somewhere nearby, somebody whispered, "Jesus Christ." My Uncle David actually stood up from his chair, looking furious. Emily turned away, quickly pressing one hand against her mouth while the other protected her stomach instinctively. Carmen crossed her arms like she was waiting for applause. "It's a joke," she said casually into the silence. "Everybody's so dramatic." That was it. That was the exact moment years of restraint finally died inside me. I looked directly at my sister and said, very calmly, "Get out." Carmen blinked once, still smiling slightly. "Excuse me?" "Get out." "Oh, come on." "No." My voice cut through the backyard sharp enough that several people flinched. "You humiliate my wife one more time and act like we're overreacting every single time. Leave." My mother rushed forward immediately. "Mateo, don't do this here." I looked at her next. "You invited her after I told you not to. She's your sister." She handed my pregnant wife a note implying I'm going to abandon my child. Carmen rolled her eyes dramatically again. "You used to disappear for days when you were younger." I was 17. The entire yard went dead silent again after I shouted that. Carmen shrugged. "People don't change that much." And suddenly something terrifying clicked into place for me. She meant it. All these years later, she genuinely still believed I was fundamentally broken. Every achievement, every year of stability, every sacrifice, every responsibility I carried now. None of it counted because she had permanently frozen me in her mind as the family screw up. And honestly, I think she needed me to stay there because otherwise she'd have to confront the ugliness growing inside herself. Emily suddenly turned and walked quickly into the house. Rachel immediately followed her. That movement hit me harder than Carmen's insults, honestly. My wife wasn't even trying to defend herself anymore. She was escaping, and my daughter was inside her while all this happened. I pointed toward the gate. "Leave now." Carmen laughed again, but this time it sounded thinner, less confident. "You're seriously throwing me out over a joke? You don't get to call cruelty a joke anymore." My mother grabbed my arm suddenly. "Stop escalating this." I pulled my arm away immediately. "Escalating? Mom, she came here to hurt Emily intentionally." "No, I didn't." Everybody turned toward Carmen. For the first time all afternoon, several relatives openly looked disgusted by her. My cousin Isabella shook her head slowly like she couldn't believe what she was witnessing. Even Tyler, Carmen's own son, looked horrified standing near the patio table. Then Carmen made the mistake that finally destroyed whatever support she still had left. She looked toward the house where Emily disappeared and said loudly, "If she's this emotional already, Good luck when the baby comes. Tyler immediately snapped. Mom, stop. The entire yard froze again. Because Tyler never challenged her publicly. Ever. Carmen looked genuinely shocked. Excuse me. You're being cruel, Tyler said quietly. You have been for years. I watched Carmen's face change instantly. The confidence cracked for the first time all day. Oh, so now everybody's against me? No, Tyler said. You just keep hurting people and pretending it's honesty. Carmen stared at her son like he'd betrayed her personally. You have no idea what this family used to be like. I know Uncle Mateo isn't 17 anymore. That sentence landed harder than anybody expected, because suddenly the whole illusion shattered. Everybody there realized we had all been orbiting around a version of me that didn't exist anymore except inside Carmen's head. My mother looked panicked now, truly panicked. Can everybody please calm down? But nobody moved. Nobody rushed to comfort Carmen either. That was new. For years, every explosion ended with people stabilizing her emotions while I absorbed blame quietly. But now there were too many witnesses. Too many people seeing the pattern unfold in real time. Carmen noticed it too, and she spiraled immediately. Oh wow, she said, laughing bitterly. So, I'm the villain now? After everything I did for this family? No, I said. You became the villain when you started enjoying hurting people. Her expression hardened instantly. Emily poisoned you against us. No, she loved me enough to expect better. Carmen scoffed loudly. Please. She saw a guy with a business and latched on. That was the moment my Uncle David finally stepped in. Enough, he said sharply. Carmen turned toward him stunned. Seriously? You crossed the line. She's turning him against family. No, my uncle said calmly. You've been tearing him down for years. The shock on Carmen's face almost looked childlike for a second, like she genuinely expected everybody to keep protecting her forever. Then she turned toward my mother desperately. Are you seriously letting them talk to me like this? My mother looked trapped. That's honestly the best description. Trapped between reality and the version of reality she'd spent 20 years protecting. Carmen, she started weakly. No, Carmen's voice cracked slightly now. No, don't do that fake calm voice with me. She looked around the backyard wildly before pointing directly at me. You know what? Fine. Go play happy little family with your fake perfect wife. But don't come crying when he screws everything up again. I stared at her quietly for a second. Then I said the sentence I should have said years earlier. You don't get access to my daughter. Complete silence. Carmen blinked hard. What? You heard me. My mother immediately stepped forward. Mateo, don't say things you can't take back. I mean every word. You cannot keep family from a baby. Yes, I can. Carmen laughed again, but this time tears had started forming in her eyes. Angry tears. Humiliated tears. You think you're some big man now because people feel sorry for your wife. No, I think I'm finally acting like a husband. That one hit. You could see it hit. Because for the first time, I wasn't defending myself as the former screw-up little brother trying to prove growth. I was standing there as a father protecting his family. The dynamic had changed completely, and Carmen had no idea how to control it anymore. My mother suddenly burst into tears. Real tears this time. This family is falling apart. I looked at her exhausted. It's been falling apart. No, you're making it fall apart. No, I said quietly. I just stopped pretending. That sentence seemed to break something inside her because she immediately started crying harder. I gave everything to keep this family together. And part of the reason it broke is because nobody was ever allowed to confront Carmen. Because she's hurting. So is Emily. Nobody spoke after that. The air felt heavy and unbearable. Finally, Carmen grabbed her purse violently and started walking toward the gate. Halfway there, she turned back one last time. This isn't over. And honestly, that sentence didn't scare me anymore. It just exhausted me. After she left, my mother stood frozen near the patio, looking completely lost. For a second, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Then I remembered she had secretly invited Carmen, knowing exactly what might happen. She chose avoiding conflict over protecting my pregnant wife. Again, I think you should leave too, I said quietly. My mother stared at me like I'd punched her. Mateo, I mean it. You're throwing me out now, too? You betrayed me. I was trying to fix things. No, you were trying to force peace. Tears kept sliding down her face. I'm your mother, and Emily is my wife. That sentence ended it. My mother grabbed her purse slowly and walked toward the driveway without another word. Nobody stopped her. The second she left, the emotional adrenaline keeping me upright vanished completely. I suddenly realized my hands were shaking violently. Rachel reappeared from inside the house. Emily's okay physically, she said immediately, but she's really upset. I nodded quickly and went inside. Emily was sitting on the edge of our bed, holding one of the baby blankets from the nursery. The second she saw me, she started crying again quietly. Not dramatic sobbing, just exhausted crying. I sat beside her immediately. I'm sorry. Emily shook her head. You didn't do this. I should have stopped it years ago. That made her cry harder. I never wanted you to lose your family because of me. I grabbed her hand carefully. Emily, listen to me. She looked up slowly. You are my family. And for the first time in weeks, she finally let herself fully lean against me emotionally instead of holding everything in. The baby shower ended awkwardly after that. Some guests stayed, quietly helping clean up. Others left uncomfortable and emotionally drained. My uncle David hugged me before leaving and whispered, You did the right thing. Tyler apologized repeatedly for his mother's behavior until I finally told him none of it was his responsibility. Rachel stayed late, helping Emily calm down while making increasingly creative threats about Carmen, involving folding chairs and parking lots. Then came the aftermath. And honestly, the aftermath was uglier than the actual confrontation. By that night, extended family members had already started calling each other. Different versions of the story spread everywhere. According to one aunt, I screamed at my mother and threw 2 women out. According to another cousin, Carmen just made one joke and Emily overreacted emotionally because of pregnancy hormones. But something interesting happened too. For the first time ever, people started privately admitting Carmen had a problem. My cousin Isabella called saying, Honestly, we've all walked on eggshells around her for years. My uncle David admitted he stopped inviting Carmen to certain family events because she always targeted somebody eventually. Even Tyler texted me later that night saying, I think mom needs help, but nobody's ever been willing to tell her. That message stayed with me because it was true. The family had spent so many years protecting Carmen from consequences that her behavior kept mutating into something worse. Meanwhile, my mother stopped speaking to me completely. 3 weeks. Total silence. No calls. No texts. Nothing. That hurt more than I honestly expected. Not because I regretted defending Emily. I didn't. But losing your mother emotionally feels strange even as an adult. Like some invisible safety net disappeared beneath your feet. Emily noticed it too. One night while we assembled the crib together, she quietly asked, Do you miss her? I tightened one of the screws slowly before answering. Yeah. Emily nodded carefully. But I don't miss who I become around my family. That sentence surprised even me. Because it was true. Around my family, I always reverted into survival mode. Defensive, guilty, careful, still trying to prove I deserved respect. But around Emily, around the life we built together, I actually felt calm. Then our daughter arrived. Everything else disappeared the second I held her. Seriously, every family argument, every old wound, every resentment. Emily had been in labor for almost 19 hours. By the end, both of us looked completely destroyed physically and emotionally. Then suddenly this tiny screaming human appeared and nothing else in the universe mattered anymore. I cried immediately. Not cool crying either. Full shaking, ugly crying. Emily laughed at me while crying herself. When the nurse placed our daughter in my arms for the first time, I remember looking at her tiny face and feeling this overwhelming terror mixed with love. Like suddenly the entire world had become fragile. We named her Lucia. 3 days after we came home from the hospital, my mother finally called. I stared at the phone for almost a minute before answering. Her voice sounded smaller somehow. Can I meet my granddaughter? Straight to it. No apology or discussion about the baby shower. Just immediate access. I closed my eyes briefly. Mom, we need to talk first. Silence. Then quietly, you're still angry. No, I'm protecting boundaries now. I said I was sorry. No, you didn't. Another silence. Then finally, very softly, I'm sorry I invited Carmen. That was the first real accountability I'd heard from her in my entire life. I leaned against the kitchen counter exhausted. And she hesitated, then whispered, I should have protected Emily. That sentence nearly broke me. Not because it fixed everything. It didn't. But because for the first time ever, my mother acknowledged reality without immediately defending Carmen first. We talked for almost an hour that night. Really talked. About childhood, Carmen, and how terrified my mother always was of abandonment after my father died. About how she kept overcompensating for Carmen's pain, because Carmen was the child who stayed closest after the divorce. None of it excused what happened, but explained it. Eventually my mother asked quietly, will I ever see Lucia? I looked toward the nursery where Emily rocked our daughter gently in the dim light. Maybe, I said honestly, but things have to change. And for the first time in my life, I understood something important. Love without boundaries turns into permission. That's what happened to my family. Everybody confused enduring damage with loyalty until nobody remembered what healthy love actually looked like anymore. Carmen still hasn't met my daughter. Maybe someday she will. Maybe not. Honestly, I stopped trying to predict it. Because the biggest thing I learned through all this is that peace isn't keeping everybody happy. Peace is finally being able to breathe in your own home without waiting for somebody to hurt the people you love.